Girl rescues sick pony out of pity and discovers a truth no one could have imagined. Little Emily Johnson had spent the entire week watching the skinny, injured pony in the neighboring pasture, too afraid to approach. The animal seemed abandoned, with strange marks all over its body, and a sad look in its eyes that made her cry every night before bed. It was on a Saturday morning that she finally gathered the courage and jumped over the low fence separating her grandmother Margaret's backyard from the empty lot. The pony was lying in the farthest corner, breathing heavily. "Hi, handsome," Emily whispered, slowly moving closer. "Are you hungry?" The animal lifted its head with effort, revealing eyes that seemed to carry a deep sadness. Its ribs were clearly visible under its dirty, tangled coat, once a golden color that must have been shiny. Emily ran back home, her heart racing. "Grandma, there's a sick pony over in Mr. Richards' lot," she said, finding Margaret watering the plants in the backyard. "What pony, child? There's no animal over there," her grandmother replied without looking up from her begonias. "Yes, there is, Grandma. He's really skinny and hurt. Can we help?" Margaret sighed and wiped her hands on her apron. At 72, she had enough experience to know when her granddaughter was serious. The urgency in Emily's voice made her stop watering the plants. "Show me where this pony is." The two walked to the fence. Margaret held Emily's hand tightly when she saw the animal. There really was a pony there, and it was in terrible condition. "My heavens," she murmured, taking in the wounds and the animal's malnourished state. "How did this creature get here?" "Can I take care of him, Grandma? Please. I have $23 saved in my piggy bank. I can buy food and medicine." Margaret looked at her granddaughter. Emily was only 9, but there was a determination in her brown eyes that reminded her so much of her daughter Sarah, who had left this world too soon. The same stubbornness, the same compassion for animals. "Sweetheart, this pony might be sick with something serious. First, we'll call Dr. Michael, the town vet." Dr. Michael Peterson arrived 2 hours later, driving his white pickup truck that everyone in Greenfield, Texas recognized. He was a middle-aged man, always serious, who had served the area for over 20 years. When he saw the pony, his expression changed completely. "I can't treat this animal," he said flatly, turning back to his truck. "What do you mean, Doctor?" Margaret asked, surprised. "I know this pony. It's nothing but trouble. You'd better not get involved." "But he's sick," Emily protested, tears in her eyes. The vet looked at the girl for a moment, as if he wanted to say something, but shook his head and got into his truck. "I can't help with this animal. Find another vet." And he drove off, leaving a cloud of dust on the road. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now continuing. Margaret watched the truck disappear, confused. In all the years she'd known Dr. Michael, she'd never seen him refuse to treat an animal. "Grandma, what did he mean by nothing but trouble?" Emily asked. "I don't know, sweetheart, but if Dr. Michael won't treat it, he must have his reasons." That night, Emily barely slept. She kept thinking about the pony out there alone, hungry and in pain. By 4 in the morning, she couldn't take it anymore and left her room. Her grandmother's house was small and old but cozy. Emily tiptoed to the kitchen and prepared a bottle of warm milk with sugar, just like she did when she played with dolls. The pony was where she'd left it, but now it was shivering. The early morning was cold and the animal looked worse. "Hi, handsome." "I brought milk for you," she whispered, offering the bottle. To her surprise, the pony accepted it and drank all the milk. As she fed it, Emily noticed something strange. On the animal's right front hoof was a clear mark that looked like a drawing, a shape she knew very well. It was identical to the symbol her mother always drew in the margins of her notebooks when she was little, a heart with a star inside. "Grandma, Grandma, wake up!" Emily ran to Margaret's room as soon as the sun rose. "What is it, child?" Her grandmother sat up in bed, startled. "The pony has Mom's mark, the one she always drew." Margaret put on her robe and followed her granddaughter to the pasture. When she saw the mark on the animal's hoof, her face paled. "This is just a coincidence, Emily. Your mother made up that drawing." "But it's exactly the same, Grandma. Just like it, with the heart and the little star inside." Margaret examined the mark more closely. It truly was identical to the symbols Sarah had drawn obsessively during her teenage years. But this was impossible. Sarah had never been around horses. "Grandma, can I keep him, please? I promise I'll take care of him all by myself. He won't be any trouble for you." Margaret's heart tightened. Her granddaughter had the same determined look Sarah used to have when she wanted something. And maybe it would be good for Emily to have some responsibility, something to keep her busy during school break. "All right, but if he gets too sick or causes too much trouble, we'll have to find another place for him." Emily shrieked with joy and hugged her grandmother tightly. "Thank you, Grandma. I'll take care of him better than anyone." They improvised a small shelter in the backyard using old wood and a tarp. Emily coaxed the pony to stand and led him there slowly, offering carrots and sugar cubes her grandmother had set aside. "What should we name him?" Emily asked. "You choose. He's your pony now." "Star, because of the mark he has." On the first day, Star stayed quiet in the corner of the makeshift shelter. Emily stayed by his side the whole time, whispering to him and brushing his coat with an old brush she found in the shed. When night fell, the pony's condition worsened drastically. He began trembling violently and his breathing became uneven. "Grandma, he's really sick," Emily cried in panic. Margaret looked at the animal and realized the situation was serious. They needed urgent veterinary help, but Dr. Michael had refused to come. "We'll have to ask Mr. Walter for help," she said, referring to the neighbor who lived next to the lot where they'd found Star. Walter Thompson was a 65-year-old man who had lived alone since his wife passed. He kept his house always closed and rarely spoke to the neighbors. People in town thought he was odd and avoided him. Margaret knew convincing him to help would be hard, but she had no other choice. "Mr. Walter?" She knocked on his gate at 9 at night. He appeared at the window, suspicious. "What do you want, Mrs. Margaret?" "It's about the pony on your land. My granddaughter brought him home, but he's very sick. Dr. Michael refused to see him." Walter's expression changed. He hesitated for a moment, then opened the gate. "Michael really refused?" "He said he knew the animal and that it was just trouble." Walter let out a deep sigh. "Bring the pony here. I have some veterinary knowledge." They managed to lead Star to Walter's house. He examined the animal carefully, checking its wounds and listening to its breathing. "This pony is malnourished and has a serious infection, but he'll survive if he's well cared for," he finally said. "Do you know him?" Emily asked. Walter avoided the girl's gaze. "I've seen him around. He belonged to Golden Meadow Ranch, which closed a few years ago." "Why did it close?" Emily pressed. "Problems? Better not talk about that." Walter applied antibiotics to the pony and taught Emily how to prepare a special feed to help with its recovery. She stayed up all night caring for Star, who gradually seemed to stabilize. The next morning, an elegant woman appeared at Margaret's gate. She must have been around 50, with neatly styled blonde hair and expensive clothes. She drove an imported car that stood out completely from the simplicity of the neighborhood. "Good morning. I'm Vanessa Williams. I heard you found my pony." Margaret greeted her on the porch, suspicious. "Your pony?" "Yes. He escaped from my ranch a few days ago. I have the papers here." She showed a folder with documents. Emily came running from the back of the house. "Grandma, who is this lady?" "She says Star is hers." "Star?" Vanessa smiled, but there was something forced in her expression. "What a beautiful name. Though his name is Goldie. He has a mark on his hoof that looks like a star," Emily explained protectively. "Oh yes, the birthmark. All the ponies in my bloodline have it." Vanessa showed the documents to Margaret. They seemed legitimate, but something didn't add up. "Why did you leave him sick in that vacant lot for so long?" Margaret asked. "We searched, but it's hard to find a runaway animal. He's very clever." Emily clung to her grandmother's skirt. "Grandma, don't let her take Star. He's better here." "Sweetheart, if he's her animal, she has the right to take him," Margaret said, though she was reluctant too. "Can I see the papers?" A voice came from behind them. It was Walter, who had arrived to check on Star. Vanessa seemed bothered by his presence. "And you are?" "Walter Thompson. I live next door." He took the documents and examined them carefully. His expression turned serious. "These papers are dated yesterday," he whispered to Margaret. "What do you mean?" "The ownership record. It's dated yesterday, But she said she's owned the pony for years. Vanessa overheard and visibly tensed. It must be a duplicate. The originals were lost. Interesting, Walter said, handing back the papers. Because I remember very well when Golden Meadow Ranch was shut down and all the animals were sold at auction. You're confusing the ranches, Vanessa quickly replied. No, I'm not. I worked there for 15 years. The silence that followed was tense. Vanessa hastily put the papers away. Well, I'll give you time to say goodbye to the animal. I'll come back tomorrow to pick him up. She left in a hurry, leaving everyone confused. Mr. Walter, what's going on? Margaret asked. That woman doesn't own this pony, and I have a suspicion about who the real owner is. Who? Walter looked at Emily, who was petting Star. I need to check something first. Can I take a closer look at the mark on his hoof? They went to the backyard where Star was resting. Walter examined the mark carefully, then stepped back with a thoughtful expression. Mrs. Margaret, do you have pictures of your daughter when she was younger? I do. Why? I'd like to see some, if it's no trouble. Margaret went to fetch an old album. As they flipped through the pages, Walter stopped at a specific photo. This one. How old was your daughter here? About 16 or 17. Why are you asking? Walter took a deep breath. Because I recognize that girl, Sarah Peterson. She spent 2 years at Golden Meadow Ranch. Margaret nearly dropped the album. That's impossible. Sarah never rode a horse in her life. Oh, she did. She was one of the best riders I ever trained. And this pony, he pointed at Star, was hers. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The world seemed to stop for Margaret. Her daughter riding horses, visiting a ranch, how was that possible without her knowing? Mr. Thompson, there must be some mistake, she said, her voice trembling. There's no mistake. Sarah came to train every Saturday and Sunday. She paid for the lessons with the money she earned babysitting the neighbors' kids. Emily listened with wide eyes. My mom rode horses. Your mother was talented. She dreamed of competing professionally, continued Walter. And this pony here was a gift from her boyfriend. What boyfriend? Asked Margaret, growing more confused by the minute. A young man from the capital, wealthy. He bought Star especially for her. Margaret felt her legs weaken. Sarah had never mentioned any wealthy boyfriend, much less riding lessons. When did this happen? About 12 years ago. Sarah stopped coming suddenly. I never saw her again after that. 12 years ago was exactly when Sarah had gotten pregnant with Emily. The timing matched perfectly. Grandma, you didn't know my mom rode horses? Asked Emily. No, sweetheart. Your mother never told me any of this. Walter noticed Margaret's discomfort. Maybe she had her reasons for not saying anything. That night after Emily went to sleep, Margaret lay awake thinking. How had her daughter managed to hide an entire life from her? And why had she hidden it? She remembered how Sarah's behavior had changed during her teenage years. She became more reserved, spending a lot of time away from home on weekends. Margaret had always assumed she was with friends. The next morning, Emily woke before sunrise and ran to check on Star. The pony looked a little better but was still very thin. As she brushed its mane, she noticed something odd. There was a tiny stitch in the mane, almost invisible. It looked like something was hidden there. Carefully, she undid the stitch and found a small leather pouch, tightly sealed. Grandma! Grandma! She ran inside. What is it now, child? I found something hidden in Star's mane. Margaret examined the pouch. It was small, about the size of a child's wallet, but made of fine, well-crafted leather. When they opened it, they found several small photos. All of them showed Sarah, younger, riding the same pony that was now in their backyard. My goodness, Margaret whispered, staring at the images. In one photo, Sarah stood on a podium holding a trophy. In another, she hugged Star after what looked like a competition. There was also a picture of her with a tall, elegant young man, both smiling beside the pony. Grandma, who's this guy with Mom? Margaret studied the photo. The young man had handsome features and expensive clothes. In the background, a sign with the name Golden Meadow Ranch was visible. "I don't know, sweetheart." On the back of the last photo in the envelope, something was written. "To Sarah, my eternal love. May Star always be with you. Robert." Robert, Margaret murmured. That name she knew. Robert was Emily's father. Margaret had always known he came from a wealthy family in the capital, but she never imagined he was the one who gave Sarah the pony. "Grandma, was this Robert my dad?" Margaret hesitated. Robert had left when he found out about Sarah's pregnancy and never been heard from again. "Yes, sweetheart. So my dad gave Star to my mom?" "It seems so." Emily looked at the photos with shining eyes. "That means Star has always been part of our family." Before Margaret could answer, they heard a car pulling up outside. It was Vanessa Williams returning to collect the pony. "Hide these photos," Margaret whispered to Emily. Vanessa stepped out of the car, accompanied by a man in a suit carrying a briefcase. "Good morning. This is Mr. Richard, my lawyer. We've come for the pony." The lawyer was a stern-looking man in his 40s. "Ladies, we have a court order here demanding the immediate return of the animal." Margaret felt her heart race. A court order? How did they get it so fast? "May I see the paper?" The lawyer handed her the document. Margaret read it with difficulty but managed to understand that it required the pony to be handed over to Vanessa Williams within 1 hour. "But we found him abandoned," she protested. "That doesn't matter. The animal has a legal owner," said Vanessa impatiently. Emily began to cry. "You can't take Star, he's sick." "Sweetheart, we'll take very good care of him," said Vanessa, but her tone wasn't convincing. That's when Walter appeared at the gate. "What's going on here?" "We're here to collect our pony," replied Vanessa, clearly annoyed by his presence. "Interesting, because last night I made some calls to acquaintances who work with animal registries." The lawyer and Vanessa exchanged worried glances. "And I discovered there's no record of this pony being registered under Vanessa Williams' name." "There must be a mistake in the system," the lawyer said quickly. "There's no mistake. What's more, I found out this pony was originally registered under Sarah Johnson's name." Walter pointed at Margaret. "This girl's mother." Vanessa visibly tensed. "That's a lie." "It's not a lie. I have the documents right here," Walter said, holding up some papers. "And this court order you brought is fake." The lawyer took Walter's papers and examined them quickly. His expression changed completely. "Vanessa, we need to talk privately," he said, pulling her aside. They whispered for a few minutes before returning. "There's been a misunderstanding," the lawyer said. "We'll leave for now." "What do you mean, a misunderstanding?" asked Margaret. "Just an error in our records. Good afternoon." They hurried away, leaving everyone confused. "Mr. Walter, how did you get these papers?" asked Margaret. "I called a friend who works at the Animal Registry office. He confirmed the pony was registered under your daughter's name when it was purchased." "But why does that woman want Star so badly?" Walter looked at Emily, who was hugging the pony. "Ponies of this bloodline are extremely valuable. Star is worth a fortune." "A fortune?" "At least $50,000, maybe more." Margaret nearly fainted. $50,000. How had Sarah gotten such a valuable animal? "Mr. Walter, I need to know the whole truth about my daughter and this pony." He sighed deeply. "Mrs. Margaret, your daughter wasn't just an ordinary student at the ranch. She was the best rider I ever trained. She had natural talent and a special connection with horses." "Go on." "Robert, her boyfriend, was the son of the owner of one of the biggest horse farms in the state. When he fell in love with Sarah, he bought Star especially for her. He was a competition pony imported from England." Emily listened, fascinated. "My mum won competitions?" "She won almost all of them. She was a rising star in national equestrian sports. Until..." "Until what?" asked Margaret. "Until she got pregnant." Robert refused to take responsibility. His family pressured him to break things off with Sarah. Margaret felt a pang in her chest. Her daughter had gone through all that alone, without being able to rely on her. "And the pony?" Sarah had to choose. Either stay with Robert and give up the baby, or keep the baby and lose everything. "She chose the baby," Margaret whispered, looking at Emily. "She did. But before she left, she asked me to take care of Star. She said she'd come back for him one day." Tears streamed down Emily's face. My mom never came back because she passed away when I was born. Exactly, and I took care of Star all these years until the ranch closed. Why did the ranch close? Asked Margaret. Walter hesitated. Vanessa Williams was the manager of the ranch. After the owners sold the property, they discovered she had stolen several valuable animals, including forged documents. She's a thief? Yes, and now she wants to steal Star too, because she knows it's worth a lot of money. Margaret sat on the porch trying to process all the information. So you're telling me my daughter hid an entire life from me because she was afraid of how I'd react? Sarah once told me she was afraid of disappointing you, that she came from a simple family and didn't want you to know she was getting involved with wealthy people. But I would never judge her for that. Young people don't always think straight when they're scared. Emily moved closer to her grandmother. Grandma, now that we know Star was Mom's, can he stay with us? Margaret looked at her granddaughter. Sarah had made enormous sacrifices so Emily could exist. Maybe it was time to honor her daughter's memory. Of course, sweetheart. Star is rightfully yours. That afternoon, while Emily cared for the pony, Margaret decided to look for more information about Sarah's past. She went up to the attic, a place she rarely visited. Among dusty boxes and old furniture, she found a suitcase that belonged to her daughter. Inside were things Sarah had kept before leaving. Margaret found letters, photos, and even small trophies Sarah had won in competitions. In one letter, Robert coldly said goodbye, explaining his family would never accept a bride from humble origins. There was also an unsent letter addressed to Margaret. Dear Mom, I know you'll be disappointed when you find out about Robert and the horses. I hid everything because I was afraid you'd think I was running away from our reality. But I love riding, and I love Robert, even though our social differences are a problem. If anything happens, take care of my daughter, and if possible, Star. They're the most precious things I have in this world. Margaret cried as she read the letter. Her daughter had carried this burden alone, never giving her mother a chance to understand. When she came down from the attic, she found Emily in the yard teaching Star tricks. Grandma, look, he can already lift his hoof when I ask. Margaret smiled through her tears. Your mother would be so proud to see you two together. You think so? I'm sure of it. That night, they went to bed more at peace, knowing Star was where he belonged. But the peace didn't last. Around 2 in the morning, Emily woke to a strange noise coming from the yard. She peeked out the window and saw a shadow moving near the pony's shelter. Grandma, she whispered, waking Margaret. What is it? There's someone in the yard. They slowly approached the window. A person was near Star, fiddling with something. I'll call the police, said Margaret. No. What if they hurt Star? Emily quietly opened the back door and tiptoed outside. Margaret followed, her heart racing. When they got closer, they saw it was Vanessa. She was tampering with Star's feed, pouring something into the trough. What are you doing? Emily shouted. Vanessa startled and dropped a small vial on the ground. I was just checking on him. In the middle of the night? Margaret asked suspiciously. Vanessa tried to leave quickly, but Margaret blocked her. You're not going anywhere until you explain yourself. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Emily bent down and picked up the vial Vanessa had dropped. There was still some liquid inside. What is this? It's vitamins for the pony. That's a lie, said a voice behind them. It was Walter, who had heard the commotion. That's horse poison. Works slow, looks like natural illness. Vanessa turned pale. You're lying. I'm not. I know this poison. It was used at the ranch to get rid of troublesome animals. Margaret felt her legs go weak. Vanessa was trying to poison Star. Why would she do such a thing? She asked, horrified. Because if she can't have the pony, she'd rather no one else have it either, replied Walter. That's how she's always operated. Vanessa realized she was cornered. You can't prove anything. Oh, but I can. I have cameras in my backyard that cover this area too, Walter lied. Vanessa knew she was defeated. She ran off and jumped into her car, speeding away. Mr. Walter, do you really have cameras? Asked Emily. No, but she didn't need to know that. They checked Star's feed and found traces of the liquid Vanessa had added. We'll have to throw it all out and give him a bath to make sure he didn't come into contact with anything, Walter said. They spent the rest of the early morning tending to Star, washing him, and preparing fresh feed. The pony seemed confused by all the commotion, but patiently cooperated. By sunrise, everyone was exhausted. Mr. Walter, why does that woman hate Star so much? Asked Emily. Because Star represents everything she lost when she was exposed as a thief. If she could steal him, she could sell him and have money to start over. And now? Now we'll find a real lawyer and settle this once and for all. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. On Monday, Margaret and Emily went to town to find a lawyer. Walter accompanied them, bringing all the documents he had gathered. The law office was small, but the attorney, Mr. Daniel Harper, seemed competent. From what I see here, you have legal rights to the pony, he said after reviewing the papers. The animal was purchased and registered under Sarah Johnson's name, the girl's mother. And that woman can't do anything about it? Asked Margaret. She can try, but she has no legal standing. Besides, from your description, she committed trespassing and attempted animal poisoning. Those are crimes. Should we file a complaint against her? I'd recommend it. People like her don't stop until they get what they want. When they left the office, Emily was more hopeful. Grandma, does this mean Star gets to stay with us forever? Yes, dear. Back at home, they found Dr. Michael Peterson, the veterinarian, waiting at the gate. Doctor, said Margaret, surprised. Mrs. Margaret, I came to apologize for what happened last week. What do you mean? Vanessa Williams approached me a few months ago. She said if I treated any animal of the pony's breed, she'd make trouble for me. Since she's harmed my reputation before, I chose not to get involved. She threatened you? Yes. Vanessa has connections in the local government and has ruined other vets in the area. Walter stepped forward. Doctor, Michael, now that we know the truth, can you examine Star properly? Of course, in fact, that's exactly why I'm here. The vet examined Star carefully. The pony had visibly improved since receiving proper care. He'll be just fine. He just needs a fortified diet and some medication to clear the infection, said Dr. Michael. Doctor, can I ask you something? Said Emily. Go ahead. Why is Star so special? The vet smiled. Because he's a direct descendant of a very famous English bloodline. His grandparents were world champion jumpers. Really? Really, and your mother knew it. That's why she dreamed of competing with him. Margaret felt a swell of pride for her daughter. Sarah had truly made the right choice when she decided to stay with her child instead of the pony. But fate had brought Star back to the family. In the weeks that followed, Star made a full recovery. Emily spent every day with him, learning to brush him, feed him, and even ride. Walter offered to teach the girl, revealing he had been one of the best trainers in the state before the ranch closed. Mr. Walter, why did you stop training? Emily asked during one of their lessons. Because I felt guilty about what happened to your mother. If I had insisted she tell your grandmother the truth, maybe things would have been different. But Mom made the right choice. If she hadn't chosen me, I wouldn't exist. Walter smiled. The wisdom of the 9-year-old girl amazed him. You're right. And now you can fulfill the dreams your mother couldn't. Can I compete too? You can. Star is getting back into top shape. In a few months, you two could enter youth competitions. Emily was thrilled at the possibility. Margaret watched it all with emotion. Seeing her granddaughter happy and doing something her daughter had loved so much was a way to connect the two generations. One day, while Emily was training with Star, a registered letter arrived. It was from Dr. Daniel's office. Mrs. Margaret, we inform you that Vanessa Williams was arrested yesterday in the act of trying to steal horses from another ranch. She confessed to multiple crimes related to animal theft. Your case is now officially closed. Margaret sighed in relief. They could finally live in peace. That evening at dinner, Emily asked a question that surprised her grandmother. Grandma, do you think my father knows I exist? Margaret hesitated. Robert had never tried to learn about his daughter. I don't know, sweetheart. Do you think he'd like to meet Star? Why do you ask? Because if he gave Star to my mom, he must love horses. Maybe he'd like to know I'm taking good care of the gift he gave her. Margaret grew thoughtful. Perhaps it was time to try to find Robert, not to rekindle relationships, but so Emily could meet her father. A few weeks later, with Dr. Daniel's help, they located Robert. He still lived in the capital and had become a successful agribusiness entrepreneur. Margaret called him, her heart racing. "Hello, Robert? This is Margaret, Sarah's mother." There was silence on the other end. "Mrs. Margaret, how did you get my number?" "Through a lawyer." "Robert, you have a daughter." "I know, I've always known." The answer surprised Margaret. "You knew?" "I've kept up with your lives from afar. I know Sarah passed soon after Emily was born, and that you raised the girl alone. Why did you never reach out?" "Because I thought it was better that way. My family never accepted my relationship with Sarah. I figured it would be worse for the child to have a father who couldn't acknowledge her publicly." "Emily is taking care of Star." Robert was silent for a long moment. "What do you mean?" "We found the abandoned pony. Emily saved him and now cares for him. We learned the whole story about you and Sarah." "Star is alive?" "He is. And Emily has a real talent for riding, just like her mother. Mrs. Margaret, can I meet my daughter?" Margaret felt tears in her eyes. "Yes, she really wants to meet you." Robert arrived the following weekend. He was a polished man in his 40s, driving an imported car but dressed simply. When he saw Emily for the first time, his eyes filled with tears. "You look just like your mother," he said, emotional. "And you're really my dad?" Emily asked shyly. "I am, and I'm so sorry it took me this long to meet you. Do you want to meet Star?" Robert followed his daughter to the backyard. When he saw the pony, his emotion was clear. "He's beautiful, so well cared for. Grandma and Mr. Walter help me, but I do most of the work." "Do you ride him?" "Yes, want to see?" Emily prepared Star and mounted her, demonstrating some of the moves she had learned from Walter. Robert was impressed. "You have a natural talent, just like your mother." "Mr. Walter said I can compete in a few months. I'd love to see that." That afternoon, Robert spoke at length with Margaret and Walter about Emily's future. He wanted to be part of his daughter's life while respecting the family structure she already had. "I don't want to disrupt anything," he told Margaret. "I just want to get to know my daughter and, if possible, help with whatever she needs." "She needs a father," Margaret replied. "And professional riding gear," Walter added. "If she really wants to compete, she'll need a saddle, boots, a helmet, and other expensive items. I can take care of all that." That evening, Robert had dinner with them. Emily asked countless questions about her mother, horses, and his life. "Dad, why did you and Mom separate?" Robert looked at Margaret, who nodded, encouraging him to tell the truth. "Because I was too young and let my family influence me. I thought the social differences between us would be a problem. But I was wrong." "Did you love my mom?" "Very much. She was the most special person I've ever known." "And do you love me?" Robert held his daughter's hand. "I do, even though I never had the chance to be with you. Now I want to make up for lost time." In the following months, Robert began visiting Emily regularly. He bought all the gear she needed to compete and even renovated Star's shelter, turning it into a proper small stable. Emily's first competition was in a nearby town. It was a beginner's event, but she was nervous. "What if I fall?" she asked Margaret the morning of the competition. "If you fall, you get back up and keep going. That's what your mother would do." "Grandma, do you think Mom is watching?" Margaret smiled. "I'm sure she is, and she's proud." At the competition, Emily and Star delivered a flawless performance. They won first place in the junior category. When she stepped onto the podium to receive the trophy, all the people she loved were there: Margaret, Robert, Walter, and even Dr. Michael, who had become a family friend. "Grandma, we did it!" Emily shouted, holding up the trophy. "You did," Margaret replied, moved. That night at home, Emily placed the trophy next to the photos they had found of her mother competing. "Now we both have trophies," she said to Sarah's picture. Robert watched with emotion. Emily, can I tell you a secret? Sure. Your mother made me promise something before we separated. What? That if our daughter ever wanted to ride horses, I'd give her all the support in the world. Really? Really? She said if she couldn't fulfill her own dream, at least she wanted her daughter to have that chance. Emily hugged her father tightly. Thank you for keeping your promise. A few months later, Robert suggested something that would change all their lives. Margaret, I have a proposal. What proposal? I want to buy some land here in town and build a small riding center. Nothing too big, just enough to teach kids from the area. Why? To honor Sarah's memory. She always wanted riding to be accessible to children from all backgrounds. We can make that happen. Margaret was touched by the idea. And who would teach? Walter, of course. He's the best trainer I know. Walter, who was listening, looked surprised. I'm too old for this. Nonsense, Emily said. You taught me really well. She's right, Robert agreed. And it wouldn't just be you. We could hire other professionals too. The idea of the riding center excited everyone. They spent weeks planning how it would work. We could offer free lessons for kids in need, Emily suggested. Great idea, Robert approved. And having therapy horses for children with special needs, Walter added. Sarah would be proud to see this, said Margaret. The riding center, Sarah's Star, was inaugurated a year later. It was a simple but functional structure with 4 horses, a pony besides Star, and all the necessary infrastructure. On opening day, half the town showed up. Emily gave a special presentation riding Star, dedicated to her mother's memory. My mother always dreamed that every child could have the chance to learn to ride, she said into the microphone. Today, that dream comes true. The center became a success. Children from all over the region came for lessons, and many discovered a natural talent for riding. Emily kept competing and winning trophies, always riding Star. The pair became well known in the area and began participating in state competitions. Robert moved to Greenfield to be closer to his daughter. He and Margaret became friends, united by their love for Emily and their longing for Sarah. Walter found a new passion teaching the children. He said it felt like he was making up for all the years he had lost, blaming himself for the past. One day, 3 years after everything began, Emily was training when she noticed Star seemed restless. He kept staring at the center's entrance, as if waiting for someone. What's wrong, boy? She asked, stroking his neck. That's when she saw a woman approaching. She was young, probably around 25, and carried a baby in her arms. Excuse me, are you the family that takes care of the pony, Star? We are, Emily replied. Why? The woman smiled nervously. My name is Amy. I'm Vanessa Williams's daughter. Emily's heart raced. Vanessa, the woman who had tried to steal and poison Star. Your mother is in prison, Emily said defensively. I know, and I came here to apologize for what she did. Margaret, who had overheard the conversation, stepped closer. What do you mean? My mother was always a difficult person, but in the last few months in prison, she changed a lot. She asked me to come here and give you something. Amy opened a bag and pulled out an old envelope. This belonged to the original owner of Golden Meadow Ranch. My mother took it when the place closed. There are photos and documents about Emily's mother. Margaret carefully opened the envelope. Inside were dozens of pictures of Sarah competing, along with newspaper clippings about her victories. My goodness, she murmured, seeing an article titled, Young Promise of National Riding Wins Another Competition. Emily looked at the photos with shining eyes. My mother was famous? She was very well known in the equestrian world, Amy confirmed. My mother was always jealous of her. That's why she hated Star so much. He represented everything she couldn't be. Why did your mother keep all this? Margaret asked. I think deep down she always knew she'd have to return it someday. She said she doesn't want to carry guilt anymore. Amy prepared to leave, but Emily called out to her. Amy, would you like to meet Star? May I? Of course. They walked over to where Star was. When the pony saw Amy, his reaction was surprising. He calmly approached her as if recognizing her. That's strange, Amy said. He seems to know me. Star is very smart. Maybe he senses you're trying to make up for your mother's mistakes, Emily said. Amy carefully stroked the pony. He's beautiful and so well cared for. Would you like to learn to ride? Emily offered. May I? Of course, we give lessons here. Amy smiled. I'd love that. I always wanted to learn, but my mother never let me. Then it's time for you to make your own choices, Margaret said. Amy became a regular student at the center. She discovered she had a natural talent for riding and became friends with Emily. She shared that her mother was receiving psychological treatment in prison and had asked for forgiveness from all the people she had hurt. She wants to meet you when she gets out of prison, Amy said one day. I don't know if we're ready for that, Margaret replied. I understand, but I think she's truly changed. A year later, Vanessa was released from prison on parole. She nervously and humbly approached the riding center. Mrs. Margaret, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'd like to apologize in person. Margaret received her coldly but politely. What you did was very serious. I know. I was desperate and made terrible choices, but now I understand the harm I caused. Emily watched from a distance, holding Star's reins. Vanessa, why did you do all that? She asked. Because I was jealous of your mother. Sarah was everything I wanted to be. Talented, loved by everyone, with a family who adored her. When I saw her leave the ranch, I thought I'd finally have my chance to shine, but I never could. And Star? Star represented the love Robert had for Sarah, a love I never had. When I found out she was with you, all my anger came back. Vanessa looked at Emily. But seeing you with him, I realize I was wrong. You belong together. Emily stepped closer. Do you want to touch him? Vanessa hesitated. Can I? You can. When Vanessa touched Star, the pony didn't pull away. It was as if he understood she was no longer a threat. He forgives you, said Emily. Maybe we can too. Margaret looked at her granddaughter with pride. At 12 years old, Emily already showed a wisdom that was remarkable. Vanessa, you can come here whenever you want, but only for good things, Margaret said. Thank you. I promise I'll never cause trouble again. Vanessa kept her word. She became a volunteer at the center, helping with cleaning and horse care. She never brought up wanting Star back again. At 15, Emily became the state champion in youth riding. Star, now nearly 20, was still in excellent shape. At the awards ceremony, everyone was there. Margaret, Robert, Walter, Amy, and even Vanessa, proudly cheering from the stands. I'd like to dedicate this win to my mother, Sarah Johnson, Emily said into the microphone. She taught me that dreams can come true, even when we think we've lost everything. She looked at Star, adorned with colorful ribbons. And to Star, who brought me back to my family's story and showed me that true love always finds a way home. The audience was moved by her speech. Emily had grown into a poised and determined young woman. That evening at home, the family gathered to celebrate. Sarah would be so proud, Robert said, looking at the trophy. She is proud, Margaret corrected. I'm sure of it. Emily hugged her father and grandmother. Thank you for helping me fulfill Mom's dream. Thank you for giving us the chance to know who she really was, Robert replied. Walter raised a toast with orange juice. To Sarah, who taught us that true love is worth any sacrifice, and to Emily, who shows us dreams can be passed from mother to daughter. To our family, Emily said, raising her glass. To our family, everyone echoed. Outside, Star grazed peacefully in the small paddock. He had found his place in the world, just like everyone around him. The riding center continued to grow. Robert invested in new facilities and more horses. Hundreds of children passed through over the years, many discovering their passion for riding. Emily decided to study veterinary medicine to better care for the animals. She wanted to carry on her mother's legacy, but in her own way. At 18, she received an offer to join the United States Equestrian Team. It was the invitation her mother had dreamed of receiving. I'll accept, Margaret said. What about Star? I'll take him with me. Wherever I go, he goes. He's already 23, dear. Maybe it's time for him to retire. Emily looked out the window where Star rested under the shade of a tree. Then I'll refuse the offer. What do you mean? Star brought me this far. I won't abandon him now. Robert, who was present during the conversation, smiled. Your mother made the same choice. She chose love over fame, and she made the right choice. She did, but maybe you can do things differently. Maybe you can have both. They spoke with the team's coaches and reached an agreement. Emily would join the team, but compete with other horses during official training and competitions. Star would accompany her as the mascot and for light training. That's how Star saw the world. He traveled to many states across the country, always by Emily's side, who became one of the best riders in the United States. Everywhere they went, Emily told the story of how she had found Star sick and uncovered her mother's past. The story became well known in the equestrian world and inspired many other families. At 21, Emily decided to return to Greenfield. She had achieved everything she wanted in professional riding and now wanted to dedicate herself to the center that had become her life. "Won't you miss the competitions?" Margaret asked. "I will. But my place is here, taking care of the children who want to learn to ride." "What about Star?" "Star will be the center's official teacher. He has the patience to teach little kids." And that's exactly what happened. Star became the favorite horse for beginner children. Even in his old age, he had endless patience and never hurt a single child. Walter, now over 80, still gave lessons, but only to the more advanced students. He said he wanted to work until his last day. Robert remarried and had 2 more children, but always said Emily was his favorite. He continued funding the center and took pride in seeing how many lives had been changed there. Vanessa married a simple man from town and had another child. She kept volunteering at the center and never caused trouble again. Amy became one of the best instructors there. At 25, Emily married a veterinarian she met during competitions. They had a daughter, whom they named Sarah, in honor of the grandmother she never knew. Little Sarah grew up at the riding center, surrounded by horses and love. By 3, she was already riding Star, who, despite being 30, remained gentle and careful with the children. "Grandma Meg, tell me Star's story again," the girl would ask. And Margaret, now 82, would tell her for the 100th time how Emily had found the sick pony and uncovered the family's history. "And they lived happily ever after?" little Sarah would ask. "They did," Margaret replied, "and they still are." One day, Star simply didn't get up for breakfast. Emily found him lying in the pasture, breathing calmly, but clearly tired. "It's time, my friend," she whispered, stroking his neck. The whole family gathered around Star. He was at peace, as if he knew he had fulfilled his mission. "Thank you for everything," Emily said. Star closed his eyes for the last time, surrounded by the people he loved. They held a beautiful funeral for Star. Hundreds attended, including all the children who had learned to ride with him. "Star taught us that love knows no boundaries of time or species," Emily said in her speech. "He connected 3 generations of our family and touched the lives of hundreds of children." They buried Star beneath the tree where he used to rest, planting roses all around. A plaque read, "Star, the pony who brought our family back home." The riding center kept running, now in Star's memory. They bought a new pony, naming her Hope, and the tradition continued. Little Sarah grew up hearing stories about the great-grandfather she never met, the grandmother who left too soon, and the magical pony who brought the whole family together. "I'll be a rider like Mom and Grandma Sarah," she'd say. "You will," Emily would agree. "And you'll be even better." Margaret lived to be 90, long enough to see her great-granddaughter take her first gallops. She passed peacefully, knowing she'd raised a close-knit, loving family. Robert supported the center until his last days, saying it was his way of honoring Sarah and making amends for past mistakes. Walter Thompson worked until 85 before finally retiring, spending his final years surrounded by the affection of the hundreds of children he'd taught. The Sarah's Star Riding Center became a respected institution in the region. Many who learned there went on to become professional riders, but always returned to visit and share their stories. Emily became a renowned veterinarian and educator, known nationwide for her work with equine therapy. She wrote a book about Star's story, which became a bestseller. Little Sarah grew up to become a national riding champion at 16, surpassing even her mother and grandmother's achievements. "Grandma Sarah would be proud," Emily said at the awards ceremony. "She is proud," her daughter corrected, And so is Star. Amy kept working at the center, becoming like a sister to Emily. They raised their children together, nurturing a new generation that understood the importance of forgiveness and love. Even Vanessa found peace in her later years. Watching her grandchildren play at the center she'd once tried to destroy, she took pride in having found redemption. Star's legacy lived on through the hundreds of lives he'd touched. Every child who learned to ride there carried a piece of the magic he'd brought to that family. And so the story that began with a 9-year-old girl saving a sick pony became a saga of generations, bound by love, forgiveness, and the certainty that true dreams never die. They only transform and multiply. The end of the story. And you? What did you think of this touching story? Tell us in the comments which part moved you most and whether you believe Emily made the right choices. Leave a like if the story touched your heart, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss other amazing stories like this one. Your company means the world to us.